So this is the latest film from director Scott Derrickson, who's done a lot of horror films. He did The Black Phone, which we reviewed on the show. He also did the first Doctor Strange. So he's been around for a while. Has directed a lot of movies, some TV, and he brings us The Gorge from Apple TV Plus, which was released on Valentine's Day. It stars Miles Teller as Levi and Anya Taylor Joy as Drasa, a Lithuanian military person. Miles Teller's an American. They both get kind of conscripted or assigned to patrol the Gorge, which is a very isolated place. They don't know anything about it. They're not told anything. They're rendered unconscious to actually get there. They don't know where it is. They think it might be in the northern hemisphere, and they're briefed very little. And there's this giant gorge, and there's a tower on either side, both manned with one soldier. And the as they're handed off this assignment, all they learn is that no one knows where this is. No one talks about this. It's some clandestine agreement between the Eastern and Western blocks nations. And they asked, well, who are we trying to keep out of here? And they said, oh, no, you're trying to keep what's in there in there. So it's a little bit of mystery, what's going on. Our two leads are by themselves. They don't have any like electronics, of course, no internet. They're not supposed to contact each other. They eventually kind of strike up a friendship through a fun series of signs, and they have binoculars and telescopes to look at each other. This friendships eventually, of course, turns romantic, and a little bit of a romance blooms. They plan kind of a legal visit to one another, and during one of these visits, one of them cascades down the gorge, and it becomes a rescue mission. Mystery, sci-fi, whole lot going on. Some of it works, some of it doesn't. Zach, what do you think?
So I was pleased when I asked people what they had thought of The Gorge, if they'd watched it before I checked it out, because I didn't want to watch a trailer. I figured we're going to watch it for the show. I'll just check, just kind of take people's temperature, see what they thought if they've seen it. And people said that it had a lot going on, which is weird because the trailer does not seem to have a lot going on. Like you said, you've got a gorge, a couple snipers. They start talking to each other and playing a game of telephone across the gorge. Something's down there we don't really know. There's a lot that's not shown in the trailers for the gorge. And tragically, normally that'd be a good thing, but I'm not sure it is. I think the gorge might be too much. I think the gorge might be overstuffed. I think the gorge might be better for a miniseries or an adaptation to a larger work, because what's here is like real full, dude. It's 2 hours in length, which is probably longer than it needs to be because we can tell you the idea in less than 30 seconds. Like, third time, your gorge, snipers, both sides, they start talking to each other. There's something down there. Like, it's not that deep of a concept, right? And it starts out pretty strong, and it gets to where it's going pretty quickly, but then it just keeps going, and it just keeps rolling. And I think it's a result of Scott Derrickson's work in horror, which is something that's not advertised a lot here. The Gorge is kind of a horror movie. It's weird. If you search for it on YouTube, you might be watching that here, us there. You may see things like the Gorge is like a video game movie, or the secretly like a zombie thing. And like, it kind of is, because the evil at the bottom of the gorge is good monster design, but feels oddly out of place for the rest of the gorge. Like the poster for the gorge is like our two characters, like their heads against each other, with like this pink twilight sunset. It's like, oh, it's kind of like a romance. And then also it's like a huge action film for your dad. It's kind of too much. There's a secret organization and Sigourney Weaver's in it, who's a lot of fun. But like, she's got her own motivations, and they got to figure out what's going on with everybody. Surprisingly complicated for a movie with a small cast and a pretty simple idea.
Yeah, this is like 5 movies in one. Like, I didn't see any the promos. I didn't see any of the trailers. So I just thought this was like going to be a sniper battle or some sort of a political something or other, people from different countries. It's not that. But it is like part military procedural, part rom-com, part sci-fi, part horror, part like, government spy stuff. So this is why Zach said that it feels like a mini series, or it could be a mini, because there's so many plot elements, and it almost feels like this was pitched, and they're like, "Hey, we got this idea for a mini series," and somebody said, "Why don't we cut that down into a movie instead?" Because there's just so much going on, and it's too much. It's too long for the idea that it is. Like, it feels overly long, but there's also so much in it where like this would you could have done a 6 episode series on this, which is what Apple does. They love the 6 episode series.
So we should talk about cast. First things, Miles Teller as kind of our protagonist lead, who is like not. Listen, I like
So
Miles Teller
dry.
fine.
So
I know.
dry.
Like listen, I like Miles Teller in Whiplash. He's great in Whiplash. But he's just playing this like kind of hardened veteran guy who sniped like 150 people around the world and like doesn't have anybody in his life and has bad dreams, and like it's just a little too generic. Like part of my work in real life, I work with veterans often, and like these guys are so much more multifaceted than what he's doing here. It's like it's just kind of closed off in a way that is not appealing. Meanwhile, Anya Taylor Joy, lightning rod in the movie, right? Like she's got dimension and she's interesting and she's got this dad character that I think they shoot in on reshoots, but like she's complicated and she's the one who kind of initiates contact with them. Like she is so much more fun and interesting for this binary relationship. You got Sigourney Weaver, who runs Dark Lake, which is this shadow kind of secret organization that ends up working with Miles Teller to get him to the Gorge, to get him involved in this. They're involved in the Gorge. We'll find out more about them later. She's fine. She's got a couple scenes in a boardroom and then a couple scenes on like a set that they built, and that's pretty much it for her. That's mostly it. You got a few extras in the movie, but like that's really it. It is very minor cast, and additionally very minor sets. Dr. Draper, when he watched this movie, had this great line that I'm very excited to share with y'all. He was like, "It's great because it's supposed to be an outdoor movie. Nearly the whole movie shot indoors. It is.
Yeah,
it's all sound stages for sure.
They spent one day outside in the forest.
I think
and everything else is on stand.
Yes, I think hilariously they probably only had one tower set, and they just filmed Miles Teller and Anya Taylor Joy on different days, doing their halves of it, and then they just cut it together in editing, and it looks like, oh, there's two different towers. Like hilariously, I'm not even sure they had both. They probably did have two tower sets, but otherwise, like very cheap, very easy to make. I think one of the clever things about this movie is the monster design, which you don't see a lot of in the trailer. Like YouTube thumbnails don't have a lot of these things. These creatures that come out of this gorge are particularly fascinating. You want to talk about them?
I didn't know whether or not we should, but the trailer does give away a whole lot of this movie. And it does show them fairly early on that there is the gorge is lined with like auto machine guns and mines and stuff, and it's like to keep, and we see these like creatures, like these humanoid things kind of try and crawl out, and they get like shot by the auto turrets and also blown up by like these hanging mines. And then as we end up descending into the gorge, we get a better look at it, and it looks like it's a mix of actually reminded me of Stranger Things, where it's some sort, and Annihilation, funny enough,
Yeah.
where it's like a blend of like half plant, half human, horrific monsters of of soldiers long dead.
Yeah, I was reminded of like the fishmen in Pirates of the Caribbean 2 on like
Yeah.
Davy Jones' ship. They're like dudes, but they're also like they got horns growing out of them and stuff. Yeah, like kind of cool looking. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool stuff. Some of the effects, that's where the budget went to, is the effects, because there are some places where we do get a lot of cool like action pieces, and like you said, good character and monster design. That's where the budget's going, and it's not to the two towers and convincing us that they're outside and not in front of giant screens most of the time.
No, and it's not a subtle movie either. Like it's very, very on the nose and very straightforward. It's the kind of movie you can do your laundry to, which is why it's good for a streaming service like Apple TV Plus, right? You can watch it at home, you can take it at your pace. At 2 hours, it's long, but it is so not. It is so unobvious, right? Like Miles Teller is a veteran who's clearly suffering some post trauma. They go out and start. They're not supposed to talk to each other, and they start writing letters anyway, and shooting across the thing to make noise and get each other's attention. And the romance very quickly like develops. It is not subtle. They do not become friends first. Like it's very straightforward. When things start coming out of the gorge, it is very obvious that those are the bad guys, and we got to shoot those things. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way down. And like I think it's a weakness of the movie that like there's just not a lot intellectually stimulating like here. Like there's not a whole lot to twirl your mustache and think about when you're watching the gorge. It's very like kind of perfect for something like a miniseries. Like it's kind of got too much going on, and if you dragged it out a little bit and maybe took more time and were a bit more patient, add a bit more, like turn up the drama, like add a little suspense, draw things out. Like I think it'd probably be a stronger project. You could do 3 or 4 episodes out of this thing, but instead it just ends up being a 2 hour movie that just feels too full, like it's just overstuffed.
Yeah, I remember at one point being like, I did the thing where I'm like, oh my God, there's a half hour left. Like I thought we were
Yeah.
about to wrap up and finish. And it's like, oh no, there's a whole other act to finish. I wanted to talk about a little bit about ATJ, Anya Taylor Joy, who, as you were saying before, it is kind of the draw to this film. She seems to be able to lift up any project she's in. And I remember George Miller saying that she's really great for action because she's a trained dancer, and so she's very good at like controlling her body and movement. So she does a really good job at like looking the part of like, the way she holds weapons and like has all the military combat gear and stuff. So like she looks the part very well. Yeah, Miles Teller is just a little bit too dry and cliche, and he's just he's the suffering veteran. He's like, I don't got much to live for. Well, I guess I'll go on this
Yeah.
mission where no one's gonna miss me, and
Right.
he's got PTSD nightmares that he wakes up from, and
But he's
yeah,
like too noble. He's too noble to have alcoholism or like real problems. He's like, no, I keep it together because I'm tough. Like, yeah, like it's just kind of like Ken doll. Like he's not really doing anything particularly interesting. Taylor Joy's got to move. There's like this whole set at the end where they got like a Jeep flipped up on a wall and there's a winch going. She's all over that. It looks like something right out of Furiosa. Like it's great. Like she's doing a great job. I wish he had more to do. I think his character's just a little flat. Like that's part of the reason he's charmed by her, because she's kind of playful in a way that he isn't. And I see that. I do. But also, like, boy, it for sure feels paint by numbers. You know what I mean? The big mystery of what's going on in the Gorge is good. And there's some fun stuff down there for sure. Like Andy said, like a la Stranger Things upside down, like lots of big colors. But I don't know. Like I wish there was a bit more mystery to the Gorge than just like what's at the bottom of the Gorge, because there's certainly more film, and that mystery alone doesn't hold up a 2 hour runtime. You need more to it.
Yeah. I think I'm ready for recommendations. I don't have too much more to say.
That's what I mean. We've talked about the Gorge more than what's going on in the Gorge. So with that, Andy, would you recommend the Gorge?
I would say it's perfect for streaming. If you already have a subscription to Apple TV Plus, maybe check it out for a fun kind of casual date night or family. It's PG-13, so it's not super violent or anything like that. But there are some nice ideas. There's too much in this film. It's like 5 movies stuffed into one. We have a great performance from Anya Taylor Joy. Miles Teller continues to be underwhelming for some reason. So save it for streaming if you already have the subscription.
Yeah, same. If this had come out in theaters, we would tell you to wait till it's at home. And it is at home. Good news. And Apple TV is one of the cheapest streaming services you can get. I think it's like $6 or $7 a month. Yeah, man. If you're already subbed, go for it. Throw it on. Give it a go. There might be something in there you like. But otherwise, it's like it's a little Netflix movie of the week, like it's fine. It's fine. Scott Derrickson obviously has a lot more going on. He's gonna be doing Black Phone 2 coming up. Black Phone 1 was a big success. We covered that on this show. We covered Doctor Strange on this show. So like he'll be around, obviously. But boy, it just feels like, I don't know, like a bit of a paycheck job. You know what I mean? The Gorge. Anya Taylor Joy got paid big. Miles Teller got paid big. Sigourney Weaver got paid big. Scott Derrickson, like everybody made money. Everyone's happy. The movie's fine. It's good. It's a B plus. I don't know. I don't do grades on this podcast. Anyway, we got to move on. We have to talk about something much more exciting than the Gorge. Big segment this week. We've been doing prep. We've been putting ballots together. Very excited to talk about it. Andy, what is this we're doing?
We are doing our 2025 Oscar predictions.